Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. It's really great to see everybody in person again after 2 or 3 years. Thank you all for coming out. It's really been great. It's been a great conference, and I hope you're enjoying it as well. So this morning, what I'd like to do is take you through some of our customers and talk to you about some of the interesting and innovative things that they've been doing with InterSystems Iris and how you can as well. So I'd like to start by talking about a longtime partner that I think many of you know well, and that's Epic Systems. So Epic makes the world's most popular electronic medical record software. It's used by 526 healthcare organizations. It manages the electronic medical records of more than 250 million patients around the world. And for more than 30 years, Epic's software has been powered by InterSystems Cache. Now, the data that resides in Epic is some of the most important data in the world. So you can imagine the company is extremely diligent about making any changes to their software. But after careful consideration, they made the decision to migrate from Cache to Iris. Now, keep in mind that many of Epic's customers have very large and complex implementations. And so first and foremost, it was absolutely critical that all of these migrations went smoothly with minimal or no disruption to their customers' operations. Now, just to give you an idea of the complexity involved, just one typical large implementation can service more than 10,000 concurrent users, runs a production database of more than 100 terabytes in size, and can process on the order of 85 million database operations per second. Right? These are huge numbers. So again, it was absolutely critical that they could migrate a customer like this as seamlessly as possible. And then the challenge, of course, is then to do this 525 more times to migrate all of their customers from Cache to Iris. So Epic migrated their first customer back in February of 2021. So before then, all of their customers were running on Cache. And as of today, more than 95% of their customers have migrated from Cache to Iris. And based on the analyses that Epic has done, they've determined that their customers are seeing between a 15 to 22% improvement in performance and a 12 to 25% increase in throughput on the same infrastructure just by migrating to Iris. So we do have members of the Epic team here at the conference, and we'd like to congratulate you on the outstanding migration effort, and also thank you for the close partnership and for your trust for all of these years. And for any of you here who are still running on Cache or Ensemble, I'd like to direct you to intersystems.com/migrate, where there's a tremendous wealth of resources to help you migrate, and of course, it's free to migrate. So next, I'd like to travel to the fast-paced world of financial services and talk to you about our customer, Broadridge Financial Solutions. So Broadridge is a huge global fintech. They do $5 billion in revenue. They're publicly traded. They have a $17 billion market valuation. And the company is large enough and the stock is successful enough that their stock is included in the S&P 500 index. So Broadridge services almost every major Wall Street bank, and they process over $7 trillion every day in equity and fixed income trades. So the company was actually spun out of the data processing firm ADP back in 2007, but before that, for about 40 years, they actually operated within ADP as an entity. So they've been around for a really long time. And during all that time that they've been in operation, they've made lots of acquisitions, and they've had organic development. And all of those acquisitions, by the way, are all bringing their own application software and infrastructure software with them. So today, they're operating more than 100 different applications, all with different data and different formats and different structures. So it's a huge challenge. And so what they needed was a better way to bring together all of this data into a clean, current, and consistent format to service their internal stakeholders and their customers and their partners. So initially, they looked at doing this by building a data lake or a data fabric, but they didn't want to create even more copies of the data and create more data silos. And they also needed real-time performance that you can't get by moving data into another static repository. So what they wanted was a dynamic data layer. They wanted a smart data fabric, exactly what Scott and others have been talking about and what Scott talked about in his keynote yesterday. So using InterSystems Iris at the core, they implemented a smart data fabric. It accesses data on demand from the source systems as it's needed. And it performs all the processing in real time, on the fly, as it pulls the data in. They have sub-second performance. There's lots of real-time capabilities. It ingests real-time transactional data and pricing data and market data and so forth. And it performs a whole range of financial calculations in real time for things like positions and valuations. And it runs completely on the AWS cloud. So why did Broadridge choose to work with InterSystems? So initially, they looked at building this out using many different individual services that they could get all on a public cloud marketplace. So they needed multiple databases and a data warehouse and a caching layer and search technologies and other technologies, which meant they would have to learn and provision and integrate and manage and maintain all of those different services and systems, and then move and copy data around between them. But instead, by using InterSystems Iris, they're able to get all of these capabilities all in one product and without moving or copying any data around, which means faster time to value, a simpler implementation, and simpler maintenance. They also benchmarked our solution with Iris against this other sort of cloud services solution that they were looking at. And they found that with Iris, they're getting a 900% increase in performance, running on 1/3 of the infrastructure. So next, I'd like to talk to you about another customer, Financial Center First Credit Union, or FCFCU. So FCFCU is a $630 million credit union. They have 68,000 members, and they manage $1 billion in assets under management. And the company is really interesting. They're very kind, warm company with their members. Their focus, first and foremost, is on helping their members. That's what they care about. And they do well as a company by doing the right thing for their members. So when the pandemic hit, they were forced to close their physical customer service locations. Right? So there were local laws and guidelines that made them close all of their locations where they would service their customers. And so when those locations went dark, they were no longer able to service their members in person, which was the primary way that they were interacting with them. So for a company that really prides itself on their deep personal relationships with their members, this presented a really big challenge. So they knew that some of their members would be facing financial difficulties during the pandemic with layoffs and health problems and businesses closing and so forth. So what they needed was a way to proactively identify those members that were at risk and find ways to help them even though they could no longer see them and meet with them in person. So they created what they call the We Care initiative to identify and help those members. And so since they've been using our technology for years, they already had lots of historical data that they could analyze. So they took advantage of the embedded machine learning and predictive analytics capabilities that they already had in Iris, and they built predictive models that analyze dozens of different behavioral metrics for things like recent transactions and payment history and loan applications and credit card information and so forth. And then they're executing these models and using the results to arm their WeCare customer support team to then go out and proactively contact these members that they predict to be at risk, right, and find personalized solutions and services and ways to help them. And so as a result, they've helped thousands of members defer their loan payments. Thousands more refinance their loans. And as a byproduct of helping their members, they actually had their best financial year in history. So they did well as a company by doing the right thing for their members. And so finally, I'd like to talk about an example from one of our customers in the supply chain space, UST. So UST is a large systems integrator. They have more than 30,000 employees. They're running at a $1.6 billion revenue run rate, and they're a global organization. They have a global footprint and global operations. So the company provides both technology and professional services to help some of the largest companies in the world with their digital transformation initiatives. And the area where they're working with us is around optimizing supply chain operations for their manufacturing, retail, and CPG customers, which today, as we all know, is more critical than ever, since, as we're all painfully aware, the pandemic has been wreaking havoc with supply chains globally. So more timely than ever. So when we started working with UST, they were already offering a supply chain software platform that they call UST Omni. And Omni provides their customers with the visibility into their extended supply chain from suppliers all the way through to customer delivery, and it also senses disruptions and exceptions in supply chain operations. So for example, if a shipment is late, or a cargo ship is held up at port, or an order is incomplete and it's missing some line items. But what it didn't do was it didn't provide the supply chain workers and the executives with actionable insights and recommendations to guide them in the best way to handle these disruptions and to calculate the trade-offs of each option. And it's a really complicated problem because, according to UST, there can be as many as 40,000 different data points involved. And any action can have repercussions both upstream and downstream. So what's the best way to handle a disruption? Should they ship more parts from a distribution center? Should they take parts from another customer's order and reroute them to a different customer? What's the impact of each one of those actions? What's the cost of each one of those actions? So that's exactly why they incorporated InterSystems Iris into their Omni platform. So we're running these predictive and prescriptive analytics in real time to identify and recommend different actions that the customer can take to remedy these disruptions and exceptions. And we calculate the projected trade-offs and costs associated with each action. So if an order is missing some parts, what's the right way to handle it, right? Again, what's the impact? What's the cost? So that's the role of InterSystems Iris with predictive analytics and prescriptive actions within the Omni platform. So why did UST choose to work with us? Well, the main reason is they projected that it would cost $5 to $10 million and take 2 years to develop these capabilities internally. But using Iris, they were able to implement it in months. But the real benefit is to UST's customers. So it's allowing them to improve their customers' ability to fulfill orders in what they call on time and in full, which Mark talked to us about, and doing it at lower cost with less disruption to their organization and without impacting their other customers. So these are just a few of our customers and partners that are doing interesting and innovative things with InterSystems Iris. And if you're using Iris, you can do these kinds of things as well. Thank you.